If you want my team and I to fix your credit score, visit cashnow.video. Hey, what's up guys? John here. The savings boom is over as Americans scramble to cope with inflation. We're going to see a lot of unique things happen in this market as we start to see more volatility and people start to question every single investment as things get more expensive in their everyday personal lives. Here's what's going on. Americans are saving at the lowest level in about a decade as increased prices for everything from gas to groceries continue to weigh heavily on their budgets. The U.S. Commerce Department released new numbers Friday showing that the personal savings rate has declined in the wake of a record-setting inflation in March of 2022. The savings rate slid 6.2% down from 6.8% in February. To afford higher-priced goods, consumers tapped into their meager savings. Now, what I think is going to happen here is I think that most Americans don't have savings. About 60% of Americans have less than $1,000. And so if the price of goods are increasing 10, 15, 20, 30%, then what's ultimately going to happen is they're going to have to pull out that plastic device in their phone and swipe that credit card. And when they swipe that credit card, most credit card companies are going to charge them between 20 and 25% interest. And if they're making minimum payments, they're going to actually pay 200% or 250% for that item because that's basically how things work. You pay almost 2 to 3 times the price of an item if you make minimum payments. And so that's what's ultimately going to happen is we're going to start seeing more Americans forced to pay 2 or 3 times that item because they need it. Plunging, the savings rate is to the lowest level since December 2013, tweeted Peter Schiff, chief economist of the investment firm Euro Pacific Capital. The department defines a personal savings rate as a percentage people save of their disposable income after taxes. It is a report in the department said the American incomes grew in March but did not keep up with increased pace of their spending. This uptick was due in part to soaring gasoline and food expenses, largely mirroring the Labor Department's latest inflation report. In March, the inflation hit a 41-year high at 8.5%, significantly more than the 2% rate the federal government typically prefers. Skyrocketing prices for gas, groceries, and housing were key contributors. Now, I think that we're going to see gas prices continue to soar in a big way throughout Q3 and Q4 of 2022. And I think that's going to have a very big impact on the price of goods and items that we purchase. I believe this is actually going to continue to erode the savings of Americans as we move forward into this quantitative tightening environment in which there is no stimulus, there is no unemployment benefits, there's no PPP loans. All of that gets pulled out of the market. I believe this is going to force an affordability crisis on this country. Economists note that since spending is outpacing income gains, Americans are dipping into their savings account to bridge the gap, thus pushing the savings rate down. March marked the 3rd month in a row where the savings rate fell below the pre-pandemic average of 7.5%. For a while, the plummeting savings rate was actually hailed as a sign of the U.S. economy was returning to normal. At the beginning of the pandemic crisis, the savings rate was at an astronomical 34% as the economy stretched to a halt in summer and spring of 2020. Folks stayed indoors and all but stopped spending money on things like travel, restaurants, and live entertainment. Millions of people also received several rounds of stimulus checks. The result was a massive increase to the personal savings rate. Now, these people that received all of this money, what did they do with it? They held it, sure, but they also invested it, and many investments did extremely well. Especially if you invested in stocks or crypto, you probably saw double-digit returns. Many people did, but now those returns are getting sucked out of the market and people are getting more concerned with everything else that's occurring in the world, that it's going to have a really unique and profound impact on one's savings. Dwarfing even the 28% savings rate notched during the World War II, at the height of the pandemic, Maria Slovenia, an economist and chartered financial analyst at TD Economics, estimated that Americans stockpiled $2.7 trillion in excess savings. While it may sound counterintuitive, saving at such an elevated level can actually be a sign of an unhealthy economy, one in which consumers aren't spending their money, businesses are shuttering, and unemployment is rampant. The economy seems to be past this stage, but it's now barreling through a period of record-setting inflation that's forcing consumers to quickly burn through any excess cash they may have had. In short, Commerce Reports is confirmation that the savings boom is over. Now, I think a couple of things could happen here. A couple of very unique situations that we've never seen in history before. The first is that we will likely see the lifestyle of the traditional American get pulled back And I think that we're going to start to see, us living this beautiful, first world type of lifestyle. I think that's going to likely change as we start to get back to brass tacks and we start to see more of an affordability crisis happen in this country, where I think Big Brother is going to step forward and move forward on a universal basic income. I think that's ultimately going to happen, not now, but maybe 2 years from now, maybe a year and a half from now. I think we're going to have a rough road from now until we get there. And the reason that I think that they're going to do that is I think that as things get more and more challenging, crime will increase. America as a whole will start to get a little bit more shaky, a little bit more reserved, and the divide between the haves and have-nots will get greater than ever before. Because even people that are in the middle class now that feel comfortable, if things increase 10% or 20% more, or their business takes a very big hit due to what's going on in the economy, then what's ultimately going to happen is that they're going to need to fix that. And the only way that they're going to be able to fix that is actually printing more money and building out some type of universal basic income. I believe that is eventually what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen overnight. The second option is that they do nothing and everything hopefully works itself out over the long haul. But due to innovation with technology and robotics and the destination at which I believe our economy is going in, I think that it's going to be very, very challenging for them not to usher in some type of universal basic income as we start to see more and more jobs get sucked out of the market over the coming few years. But I think it's going to be very unique. I think we're stepping into the biggest wealth transfer in the 20th century. It's happening right now. Between 2020 and 2030 is going to be the biggest transfer of wealth. If people are not building out the right plan, the right strategy right now, we're going to be stepping into a massive, massive problem, or they will. And the reason being is because the wealth is going to shift, and once that wealth shifts, it's not coming back. Let me give you an example. Let's say Blackstone, these big private equity firms that are representing pension funds and insurance companies, and they're representing, the deep, deep pockets. They buy up all the housing, right? When I say all the housing, I don't mean 100%. I mean, let's say a building tract ends up going into foreclosure. It's 500 houses, and they buy that tract, right? When they own it, are they going to sell it back to the open market 10 years later? Or are they going to sell it to another private equity firm? Probably another private equity firm, right? Well, imagine being able to incorporate technology into this transactional database, where if there's a bunch of foreclosures in an area, they simply can just go ahead and purchase them all online. We're already starting to see that, where they're making these purchases online through iBuyer and things like that. I believe that over the next few years, next 8 years, that if people are not extremely focused, extremely acting with intent in their business, that they're going to be missing this opportunity. That's what I believe. And that is why I believe it's so important right now to pay attention to what's going on. Savings rates are declining and costs of living are increasing. We are stepping into this era in which, this lazy type of society that's being built out over the last couple of years, where we're basically just, being very, very comfortable, expecting things just to work out. I think that's a trap. And I think that smart entrepreneurs, smart investors are paying attention to this, saying, okay, what can I do right now? What's a really good pivot for this business or for my new business? What business can I start? How can I invest? What options can I create for myself to pivot down the road? Because that's what it's going to come down to. The smart entrepreneur is going to have options to pivot. No one can tell how this is going to play out over the next year or two. With everything that's happening in the world right now, no one can tell how it's going to play out. But he or she that has the most options will benefit the most. There's no doubt about that. And so the question I have for you is, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to see the middle class get eroded even more over the coming 8 years? And there's only going to be really a two-class society, the elite, the very, very wealthy, people worth, millions, and then everyone else? Or do you think that everything's just going to go back to 2018, 2019? Drop your comments below. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Also subscribe to my second YouTube channel. It's going to be a podcast and interactive show this week. And subscribe on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Everything's up top in the banner. I'll catch you guys later.